I'm so excited to welcome our friend Adrian. But before that, I wanted to give Kati a chance to chat with me and really hype up this episode because, wow, it was a ton of information.
It was so much information, and every time he would say something mind blowing, I didn't have a chance to jump in and say something. So even as it was happening to me, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to listen to this episode multiple times because the amount of bombs that he dropped, like lemon water, I'm starting that tomorrow. Better sleep, happening tonight. The lighting in our house, we're already like 90% there, but I'm going to fix the rest of it. Like he dropped one thing after another. So cannot wait for this episode to drop.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, thanks for throwing me under the bus with erectile dysfunction, jerk.
Okay, you know what? That was something that was a download that was like, okay, there are people who are suffering with this right now, and there was a time where you were suffering with it. So I think it's totally valid to bring it up for people in our age group who are dealing with it, and to know that you can cure it with what you're eating.
Those were dark days. I'm not gonna lie. I try to pretend that those never happened, but oh my God, I do
Okay, so they were
appreciate
dark days.
when my body does work. It is something else to be completely disconnected from your body and not understand why it's not working. That is an episode on its own. I will give you that.
Good. Give me that. And yeah, the disconnecting thing with your body, that's how I'm with my guts right now. And he dropped a couple of really good tips for that too. So anybody else who's suffering with gut things, listen to this episode.
Hmm. And with that, enjoy the show because wow, it is mind blowing how much stuff Adrian. He is an ultimate nerd when it comes to this kind of stuff in a good way. He's this big time nerd when it comes to food and the actual real science of what's going on and how to take care of yourself. I love this guy. We need to keep him coming back often because us being passionate about biohacking, he's a huge part of that, and he actually
100%.
he started that journey for us. So, without further ado, Adrian, my friend, welcome to Pear Genius Podcast. All right, welcome back to another edition of the Pear Genius Podcast. Woo! I'm excited. Kati's got her new mic. We got Adrian, our good friend Adrian, in the house. I can't wait for him to come to Canada. And man, we're just going to get into it right away because we've got so much biohacking. And man, this hour is just going to fly by. So, welcome, Adrian. We're very excited to have you here today.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. It's an honor. It's always an honor to support the podcast community and be a part of what's going on because no matter how many views or how many people you can touch one life or 1,000 lives or 100,000 lives, it's amazing. And we saw Jesus do that with the woman at the well, and we just see kindness as one person at a time. And it's always an honor to be able to speak to anybody and speak into their lives. So take that. I
And I always
appreciate
have a secret motive that I'm going to push you a little bit because I can't wait for you to finish that book. And I'm just going to keep pushing and I'm going to help you get there. And
it.
I'm really excited for that.
Candace Owens was just saying it took her 7 years to write her the book she just dropped. So I was like, I guess it's not too bad. I'm about year 5. So I need a little more pushing, I guess.
You just need
Come
to
on,
come to
Alex,
Canada.
push,
Canada for
push.
1 week. I'm going to lock you in the basement and you're going to write and I'll bring you your food and take care of you.
Well, so into what we talked about me and my journey, and it is a journey, and it started really in 2017 where I was as an assistant pastor. I was asked to actually maybe it was 2016, 2016, 17, but I was asked to pray with a young man he had stage 4 cancer, and through that relationship, at the time I was about 350, 340, or somewhere in there, just dealing with my normal health issues. But I was extremely ignorant and I had lost my mom in 2011. And at that time, I just accepted it. She suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. She had type 2 diabetes. And I just watched the progression of her mental health wane in the early 90s onto the 2000s and on to 20 when she passed away in 2011. So during that time, though, she would say things like they're killing people, raping people. And I didn't mean for this episode to get dark, but it's not. It's going to get better, I promise.
Okay.
But she would just talk about the redwoods. And so when you're dealing with mental people with mental health, it's easy to just call them crazy and just keep going. And even if it's your mom, mom's she's a little different. She built a little different, or she went through some things, and you just for you to be as normal as you can be and not deal with someone with a handicap. And again, no one teaches you this. And I think that's the biggest soapbox we can have is health is not as difficult as we make it. And what I mean by that, and I gave you guys some tips, and I got some good reviews on that, right? So there's a lot of
Definitely.
tips and tricks out there, yeah, that help heal your body and heal your mind, and essential minerals that absolutely feed your receptors in your mind. And one of the things was with her and the young man, even though it was probably a 6 year gap or so from that experience, from losing my mom and then interacting with this young man, he passed away from cancer in 2019. So that journey had started as a pastor. I was praying for him. And with my mom passing in 2011, in that in that time, I think I put on maybe 80 pounds or so. It was just a lot. And with that, it was a lot of depression. So like I started almost like down a mental health kind of, I'm just going to focus on what I can focus on, my work, my family, the church. I'm not really worried about running, or I'm not worried about what I'm eating. I'm just living my life. And through that, I started developing obviously pre-diabetes and hypertension. So I got on medicine and things like that and started dealing with edema, but I didn't know what edema was. I just saw my ankles swelling up like grapefruit. So I was like, I guess this is the progression of dealing with, because they tell you like Mexican and black, like you got the worst genes known to man. So you're going to have everything. So that's what got me into, from when my mom passed, from being extremely ignorant in health and just eating. And I'm not a health nut. I'm not there yet. I was for a while, but not as so much nowadays, but it's balanced. So, but when when I got brought into his life, I really felt convicted, because here he was at the time, like 14 years old. And then when he passed away about 16. So, and here I am 30 something, about 38, 37, 38. And I had three kids already and lived my life. And it was just so convicting to realize like I had all this time, but I'm squandering it, right? And here's this guy who's 16, 14, 15, and he may not see his senior prom. So as an assistant pastor, there's a conviction to life. You're like, if his hourglass was as long as mine, knowing what he has, what would he do with it, right? Like and then for me to say like, here this kid is, and what am I doing with the time that I've had and the time that I have left and the time that, I've been granted, like what am I going to do with it? So for me, it was like I was, at the time I was accepting type 2 diabetes, hypertension and all this stuff. And it was like, there's just no fight in me. And there's something to do with when you actually care and you have fight in you. One of the biggest things that you can do for yourself is just not lose the fight. And it's like what you're seeing with the United States and the Doge and all that. But one of the biggest things that Donald Trump pulled from Elon was, you just have to care. Like when you realize you stop caring about yourself and your situation health wise, you forget, like when you have kids, you're almost giving up on your grandkids, on your great grand, because you may not be around that long, right? So that was one of the biggest things I was facing at that time, was my blood pressure was in the 200s, and it was just like, it was getting crazy. And then to top it off, it was like all I had was like hypertension. It was like, well, oh, my blood pressure's at 200 and I have hypertension. So what happened was, from when he passed away he actually passed away in 2019, but that year, as a New Year's resolution, I was like, you know what, I'm going to lose some weight. This guy he's literally on his deathbed. He's stage 4. He's 17 now. Every day is a fight for his life. And then my mother-in-law she had severe type 2 diabetes. And then 2019, she actually, a month into it, on February 14th, believe it or not, she got really ill from the flu, and she passed away that week after, yeah, Valentine's Day. So it was a very intense time for me, because I had just started my journey, and believe it or not, within the first 3 weeks I was down like 20 something pounds. What I told you, when you like fast and you change your eating pattern right away, you lose a lot of water weight and you lose a lot of inflammation. So like I was down like 25 pounds almost. I think about 25 pounds that first month. and I could feel the difference, and it was like a new path. But at the time I was actually doing it a little reckless because I didn't understand. All I knew was like this fad diet is working, and I had tried everything, and I was like literally December 2019, I was like 2018, it was like I was crying almost like I just don't know what to do. I can't lose this weight. So I did this like keto challenge protein shake and just crash course my way into the journey that I went through. But when because I wanted to fight, the only thing I knew is that when you want results, you really need to have understanding and education. You have to educate yourself, and you need to understand what you're educating yourself with. And even if you don't understand, there's the 10,000 hour rule. That was like the one thing that I was like, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're an expert and you'll figure it out. Because I've learned to play instruments, and I've learned to play the piano and guitar, and I'm dyslexic. I didn't even know it until I started dealing with people who dealt with dyslexia. And then they started saying things like, man, it's so hard to spell. I can't read for long because I get fatigued because I can't put this, and I literally deal with all that. Then I start looking into it, and it's like, wow, I actually had a problem. But for me, it wasn't a problem, it was a way of life. But in that understanding, I don't know a lot, or I'm not college educated per se or all this stuff, but I showed you the picture of what I do for a living, well, what I manage for a living, like fiber optics and copper. And I grew up in that. So it was like I worked at Stanford University as a contractor for 24 years. So I made a lot of great relationships there, and people like really, it gave me confidence. So by this time in 2019, I was like, you know what, the 10,000, if I educate myself and I don't really know what they're saying, I'll figure it out, because I'm going to just spend a lot of time. So what I did is I got YouTube Premium. I'm not a big YouTube supporter of what they do, but I got YouTube Premium. I just started watching. I had a mentor in my church at the time who was into certain biohacking, actually. And so the biggest thing he taught me was like, hey man, watch these videos. You need to build a foundation and you'll see. So he sent me some videos on like um, high blood pressure. And he was saying like in certain countries that the actual systolic and diastolic are actually higher and more acceptable, and there's not a fear element. There's an extreme fear element around high blood pressure. And the first thing I learned was that it was a need-based system, meaning your blood pressure goes up when you need it. So when you have an infection, you're going to have high blood pressure, because how do you know? Well, you're going to have an infection. So the body's going to begin to go into not a state of shock per se, but it is, but it ain't. But it goes into its immune response. And in that response, you're producing more blood flow, because the body heals through proteins and certain proteins in the body, certain enzymes that are released, like hormones. Like our body's reaction is amazing. That's why like during COVID, I had already got educated. I was already a year and a half into, I got certified and all that. So I had already understood like the immune response, like what protein and what protein spikes are and how that affects the body. So with blood pressure, I realized like blood pressure is a need-based system. When it's elevated, there's something wrong. You need more sleep. You need more oxygen. That's why you could be yawning and your blood pressure can be up just because of stress. So as yawn, you're bringing in more, your body yawns because you need more oxygen. You need more blood flow. So like everything you do, your body's telling you something. So the biggest thing I learned was, what is your body telling you? So as I got certified, that was one of the things they teach you, is what is your body telling you? How does your skin look? If your skin is irritated, that means you have bacteria on your skin that is overtaking your good bacteria. So the bad bacteria is feeding on your diet, because you are what you eat, because every 3 months what was in your diet actually comes into your skin. So that's why a lot of kids have acne when they get very hormonal. Their body is when they're growing, their body's producing, young girls ovary, their body's maturing, their bodies. I got 4 daughters, so you start to see them become young women per se. Same thing with boys. So as their body begins to use resources to grow and to develop, it gives up on the skin, because that's the easiest thing for it to give up on. As far as like when you're under stress and you're growing organs and body parts and all this other stuff and hormonal systems and your endocrine system, the body says, you know what, skin is not as important, so we'll just let the acne go, right? But that's only and then what happens is then nowadays they monetize that by just putting you on medication instead of changing your diet and teaching you that whatever, it's like an alcoholic. We know we could smell an alcoholic because it's coming out of their pores. So when you have sugar, you don't necessarily smell the sugar, but it's coming out of their pores and their sweat. So naturally, you're going to have in your facial and other areas, you may have ingrowns, you may have skin irritations, or you can actually produce an autoimmune disease where a lot of kids who are suffering now with allergies or certain types of autoimmune disorders that can easily be fixed with just cleaning up the sugar. Now, it's not easy because it's a dopamine. They've understood that satiety and dopamine hits and your receptors in your brain from how, and you guys probably know how certain colors, and when you're advertising, they hit your emotions, right? Certain colors are more joyful, certain songs and jingles are more appealing to people because it hits certain parts of your brain. It makes you feel good. It may make you think about a good moment. So food is highly addictive, and food is the key to our health. Like it is the building blocks to you being able to produce immune responses to heal yourself from cancer, from aging, because ultimately it leads into anti-aging. So when I was talking about like high blood pressure,
Adrian, I need to make you pause right there because we already have so many things to just unpack with you right there. So I'll let Kati go first because, oh man, I just got so much. So just take a little bit of water and let's grill
sorry
him
for the
now,
water.
dear.
That was so much information. I'm trying to like, I'm soaking it all in. I'm like, oh my God, I need to know more about this. Then, oh my God, I
Hmm.
need to know more about that. So my biggest takeaway so far is that your body is always talking to you. It's always
Yes,
trying to communicate and tell you something. And how our society is so trained to run to the doctor for a quick fix instead of looking at actually what they're eating and how they're exercising and other aspects of their lives that are definitely coming into play that they're just like, well, that's going to take a lot of work because it takes a lot of work to change your diet.
it does.
So for our daughter who is dealing with acne, right away she's, but I want to go on birth control. I want to do these other skin creams. And we're just screaming at her, please, God, just cut the sugar out. Let's look at changing your diet. So you have four daughters. How did you, were you able to get them to change their diet, or did they want the
Quick fix. And the reason why, and I think I told Alex and them last time that what happened was when I was in my journey before I changed, and you got to understand is what we do now is there's pink salt in the house. There's not white salt. There's avocado oil. So they already have understanding on the oils because the most important things that you put in your body is organic products. Okay. So dairy, meat, and oils. Those are like the three top because the first thing they're going to put you on as a man or a woman is a healthy fish oil because you need omega-3. So, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of vegetable oil in the world and in the standard diet because if you go to any restaurant, they're going to cook in vegetable or canola. You go in any gas station, there's going to be peanuts and nuts and canola or vegetable oil or saf oil or whatever, sunflower oil. Those oils are the rancidest, worst oils that actually clog arteries and come out and cause skin problems and block your endocrine system because you have constant communication from the brain to the body. So your electrolytes fire from your brain and it tells your body where to go. Well, if you put things in your body, you have to remember they can block and become endocrine disruptors. So that's the biggest thing as a woman you have to understand or a young girl. And then again, no one talks about it. Like you would go to the endocrinologist or endocrinologist for anything with I'm trying to be fertile or I'm trying to or maybe I'm trying to do a transition change, but you wouldn't go to the endocrinologist for acne, even though it takes communication from your brain to release hormones which is controlled by your endocrine system, to actually remove the acne off your face. That's why you can have a pimple one day and it be absolutely like it never existed the next, because it's your body being able to actually just clear it out and move the infection. It's really just an infection. And what happens is for kids, like young girls, like my daughter, I'm gonna be honest, my first four kids are used to Disneyland chocolate, churros, and just ice cream and pizza because that's how we lived prior to 2019. So my fourth daughter who was a baby. So she kind of, and then my son, they're a little more understanding of eating cleaner, and they know the cleaner things, but they don't always want clean. Of course, they want McDonald's and everything else. And me moving to Texas didn't help. That's where the fall came for me. But that we'll get
You
into
need to
that
come to
later.
Canada. There's like
I do.
way less amazing
Yeah.
greasy food. But because of you, we have avocado oil and pink salt all the time. Like that is number one. And
It's
I've fallen off a little bit with some granola bars and things like that. But I really feel guilty when I'm eating processed foods or when I go out and I grab something. So I know that it's a treat, or I know that it's okay. You need to go exercise, or you need to go do something. You need to drink a lot of water
yeah.
to make
And
up
I think
for
that's the
what
key
I'm
for you,
doing.
especially for your girls, is stay up on their hydration. But remember, water is actually a cleanser. It's not hydration. There's no real minerals in there. Oh, hold on. I just pulled my air thing out.
At least we can
Sorry.
still hear you.
No, you're good. I'm not.
Yeah.
But no, there's water is more of a solvent, actually. That's why you clean things with water. Water is literally in everything, which is it's almost like a transport system, a part of your cholesterol. So the first thing when you're on a hypertension pill, you got high blood pressure. First thing they're going to remove is the water. No one ever asks why. And then when you remove the water, that patient now has a potassium deficiency and they're going to develop kidney failure because of the lack of hydration. Like it's such a weird system and they don't tell you. And then they try to put you on potassium retainers. But a part of it is because they don't really explain that sugar will eliminate an electrolyte. So what that means is for me to burn off the sugar in my body, I have to expend an electrolyte. So now all the nutrient that I have is now being utilized to burn off the carbohydrates and the sugars. And then what happens is the sign that you have probably a lot of sugar in your joints is when you have joint aches and joint pains that are more common, or you have stiffness and you're sore. Those are you, especially if you didn't work out. And even if you work out, recovery is a thing, right? Like you're going to recover. You work out hard, you expend the muscle, yeah, you should recover. But like I had arthritis in 2019 in this hand, and I play the keyboard and all that. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm 37, what at the time, well, 38. So I was like, well, maybe it's just part of getting old. And so I went to the doctor and he's like, yeah, it's just inflammation. You just control it with anti-inflammatories when it flares up. And then I started learning about arthritis. Well, what is arthritis? Well, man, I learned it was actually bacteria from your mouth. It gets into your blood and it goes into your joints and it begins to cause inflammation. That's why it's a cycle. That's why it goes away at times when the body can clear it out and then it comes back. And that's why they just put you on an anti-inflammatory instead of actually dealing with the problem. Because what happens is the sugar gets into your blood, it gets into your joints, it's called a glycogen. When the glycogen is stored in the muscle and the tissue and the fats, the bacteria actually feeds off that and goes into that as well. And that's why cancers will go into old injuries and areas of where your immune is weaker or it's struggling. You're a painter, it could go in anywhere. You're a smoker, it goes in your lungs. You're a drinker, it goes in your liver because your immunity wears down by your lifestyle. So that's why a lot of childhood cancers are more prevalent because they're high sugar. When the sugar's high, I think it drops your immunity down to 0 for 4 hours. Is why kids get sicker in the winter, less vitamin D. You have Halloween, you have the sugary foods, so less sun, less vitamin D, sicker kids, and it's crazy. It's the cycle is we can do better for ourselves if we would just educate ourselves. And
I
back to
thought
the
it was cold
water,
and flu season, and really it's just the Halloween chocolate rush.
it's actually depletion season. You're depleted of your vitamin D and your electrolytes. So you
Mm.
actually need the sun to charge. That's why it's important to get out in the sun. That's why they promote being out for 30 minutes a day, because they actually know that I think it's 1 minute is almost like I want to say it's 1,000, it's almost 1,000 times greater than a pill. If you
Wow.
take an exogenous pill, like it's something crazy. I don't know the exact number. You guys can look it up because you guys are geniuses.
We're
Me,
in
I don't know.
Canada
I'm
with
just
no sunshine, though, especially
yeah.
in the winter.
So like because even like my kids, like in Texas, you don't want to. It's weird. It's like it gets hot, so you don't want to go outside in the summer and get the sun. But the sun is, and that kind of goes into the tangent like we talked about. Like I was giving my friend a riddle. I was like, well, I don't understand how it could be in Texas like 20 degrees or even where you are in Canada and it's not, and the sun's out. If the sun means heat, what is the sun? What is it really doing? But really, the sun is it's magnetic and it charges us. And we know that. That's why we have solar panels. That's why we actually receive electrolytes. With vitamin D, we produce it because the radiation from the sun causes our skin to actually produce vitamin D. And we were told it was that radiation would make us sick and have cancer, but really it's the sunscreen
Was
and the
it you that I
toxins
was
in it.
talking to about seed oils, the oil coming out of your skin, and that's why you're actually burning from the skin from the sun?
Yeah, I can't. We mentioned it last time, and that's what I was telling them last on our last pod for the firm was that a lot of times it's more than what we think. The sun is not. It's not. It's there's people who we know that lived off the sun, like they go out and drink the sun, which is weird, but
Yeah, they live in Africa.
yeah, there's the sun is not the devil like we're told. It's the sunscreen and it's like you said, it's the different oils and different chemicals. And see what happens in manufacturing. I was gonna say modern day, but just the industrial complex of food is that you have to have binders and emulsifiers. So what I learned about high blood pressure is those binders and emulsifiers, when you eat them, they go into the blood. They go somewhere. To make your chocolate bar look like a bar and keep its form and maintain its taste and not go rotten, it has
Hmm.
to have chemicals. And those chemicals are proteins and they break down the body and they're very toxic. And those are things that block the communication from the brain to the rest of your body. But then, like I always tell people, like that tells you how resilient your body is and why you should look into biohacking. If you're seriously want to be healed, saved, changed, whatever you're dealing with, it can absolutely reverse. And we know that because I can take a piece of paper, give you a small paper cut, and you'll heal. No matter how sick, you could have cancer and you'll heal. Like it's crazy until
Now,
you start getting like tons of radiation and
Adrian, Kati
chemotherapy.
wants you to help lower my blood pressure. If you
You
can
know
make
what?
that,
It's funny because I was just thinking as he was talking, like if I had to ask or focus your attention onto two things based on our age right now and what we're dealing with, it would be erectile dysfunction and menopause.
Well, ED is because we're high estrogen. That's just eating too much sugar, eating too much. So high estrogen in men causes erectile dysfunction. It's easily fixable with multiple fasting, and it's easily fixable with honestly high intensity training, but really just diet. It's literally it just tells us that you're having more amounts of insulin in the body. It's same thing with women. Like women, they get their mood swings, they get fat in the either in the lower bottom area or around the upper body area. So you can tell when a woman's dealing with high estrogen because she's very voluptuous in either the breast area or the lower bottom area. And it's really the hips. And same thing with men. So if a man has extreme like man boobs or big hips, then they're high estrogen. But it's usually when you have erectile dysfunction, it's usually and I'm just speaking from experience, it's typically the result of high insulin and eating. And high insulin, you usually have high cholesterol because cholesterol is really a biomarker of the more you eat, the more you need cholesterol. Because if the cholesterol is the transport system of the nutrition, the nutrients, and the things that you eat, the more you eat, the more cholesterol you have. The more cholesterol you have, the more you eat, the more insulin you have. The more insulin you have, the more estrogen you have. The more estrogen, then it goes into a cycle, a
it's
vicious
almost
cycle.
as if the food is the medicine and not the medicine.
Yes, the food is that food actually mimics medicine. So what happens is the problem with that is it's not, it's synthetic. So you look at minerals and you look at natural compounds, those are bio, meaning they actually carry bacteria. So when you use a supplement or let's say you take a vitamin C from Costco or whatever store, it's okay. You're just going to peel all of it out because what happens is the bacteria will leach to your bacteria. So like you have a natural, they feed off each other. Like to lose weight, you actually have to have a certain bacteria in your stomach, and that bacteria actually creates a acid, and then that acid creates a gas, and then that gas is what actually helps you burn the fat. So burning fat is actually making fat into a gas And you do that through the bacteria in your stomach burning it. Because what
My wife
happens
burns a
is,
lot of fat, Adrian. She burns a lot.
Fuck you.
uh-oh.
What if you
No, no, no. It's not gas. It's just, it's actually, you should have less. If you're eating cleaner, you should have less waste. Shouldn't be too bad. So the reality is you have a gut microbiome, and that's really the essence of health, is it starts in the gut because your cravings start in the gut.
We're looking at you, Kati. We're looking at
I
you.
understand.
Last year was the year of the gut. She picked up I don't know if I was telling you about that, but she picked up a nasty parasite in Mexico, and it's
Yeah.
been an adventure ever since.
Yeah. And the reality is a lot of times, like what
He's laughing at you.
no, I'm laughing at me because I'm just crazy. I do crazy stuff. But there's the salt challenge. You should look it up. It's pretty funny. But in the
I
salt
want Kati to
challenge,
do the salt challenge.
but they do it a little, they do too much. But you can drink the pink salt, and you could take like maybe a little extra than normal where it's disgusting, and drink that, like a shot of that. You think, oh, it's not a big deal. What it does, it kind of ticks off the bacteria in your gut and the parasites. Because you know what? Parasites don't like that stuff. Go ahead
Mm,
and put some salt on a slug and see how that works out.
that's true.
So yeah, for us, it's not a big deal, but for certain bacteria, absolutely, salt is like the devil. So you'll probably
Tequila and
notice you'll
salt
have
work
to
really good, right?
But no, like salt and baking soda for the gut is like amazing, especially
Oh,
like baking soda. If you have upsets, I tell my kids all the time, but they're like, Dad, no, no. That's the
you
problem
don't
with
know
kids.
anything,
Like,
Dad.
no, they don't care. They're just like, it's disgusting. They don't just like forget you're probably right, Dad. But and I don't go around like diagnosing things or people, but like nowadays it's a lot simpler to just listen to your body and just know the areas that you can work on. And the biggest things of health are sleep, eating less as you get older. When you're in your teenage years, upload on the minerals. Lots of eggs are like amazing. Eggs and avocados are like your friend. Like eggs, avocado, you could live off that. Like seriously. And meat.
I, I just wanted to say for the record, I feel very attacked by my wife right now. Someone who has had extreme loving and pleasure for the last, I can't even remember how many months. This woman had nothing but a smile on her face. So really, it's more about the blood pressure for me than any of that other stuff. So I just want everybody to know out there that my wife smiles and is happy for a reason.
Oh yeah. It's that
Biohacking,
voice, man. What are you talking about?
right?
You're like, "Hey, baby."
But
No, I mean that.
but I did want to ask you, Adrian. What I have about sometimes 150 over 80 for blood pressure. It's elevated.
Yeah.
It's not super high, but doctors were really pushing to put me on pills every single day.
I know, and that's the thing. Like statins are the worst. And really, the first thing I would say is, how many hours a day do you sleep? Let's start at your sleep. If you have high
Mm.
blood pressure, how's your sleep?
I sleep like a baby every night. But this woman, she keeps me up late, but I would say I would average 7 hours of sleep every night, and I sleep pretty
And
good.
but
But I
what
do
time?
snore.
What time?
Ooh, I probably fall asleep around 11:30 ish, midnight ish, and then I
Okay,
sleep till about
so
7:30.
so if you're really concerned, what I would do for a week, and you can try it, keep him. You're his wonderful bride, Cotty. You got to check him on this. So when the sun goes down, all right. I don't
At
know your
five
time
o'clock,
is
at 5:30.
exactly. So when the sun goes down, keep the lights really dimmer, and see when you get tired. Okay, because you got to
Okay.
figure out your circadian rhythm, right? If you don't know your circadian rhythm, you could think 11 o'clock's not a big deal. But the problem is there's two of you guys. So one, it may not be a big deal. The other could be like the worst because your body stresses. So what I would say is what I would ask my doctors, and I had to deal with this recently, but what I would say is, okay, if you're worried about my blood pressure, then can you tell me how now I'm going to go blank, of course, but cortisol levels are? Check my cortisol levels first and check for an infection. Because if I have high blood pressure, there's a need. So if my cortisol levels are high, which is a hormone protein, right? They easily track it in the blood because then that tells me that I'm stressed. So is my blood pressure high because of stress? Because yeah, I remember 150 over 80 is like a weird number. It's supposed to be 120 over 80 is normal. So you'd want to be like 110 over 72 if you're like totally, let's say you're perfect and whatever. Because I need to know, is my cortisol high because am I stressed? So the only way to figure if you're stressed is you need to check your cortisol levels. And if they're normal, then you're like, okay, if I have a normal cortisol level, my cortisol, it means I'm not stressed, but I have high blood pressure. Do I eat too frequently? Because is my blood thicker? What's making my blood thicker? Because, and then you look at, well, the systolic number is high, but the diastolic number is low, or I can't remember which one's what. I think I think your systolic's high.
So Kati always
So,
has perfect blood pressure, and for me, I definitely know that coffee raises my caffeine raises my blood
but then
pressure.
then you would have an adrenaline issue, and then your adrenal glands could be stressed because again, you're not going to bed at the right time.
That's
So
right.
that's what I'm getting to is stress. So your stress is regulated by your adrenal glands, and your adrenal glands should be regulated by your pineal gland, right? Or something over there.
Okay.
So you got to remember that
I
that's why
thought he
it's a
said
hormone
penal.
game.
I
I
thought he
don't
said
get too excited, man. This ain't a Diddy party,
pineal.
man.
Kati's like, oh,
but
he said penis gland. Yeah.
but yeah, so like you have to look at your stressors, right? Were you stressed? Because
Probably her.
ultimately,
It's her.
high blood pressure is not an issue unless the arteries are basically stiff. If you have oxidized arteries, and yeah, you should be worried because if there's a calcium deposit that breaks off, your blood's thick, and then you can have an event, right? Heart attack, stroke, and then you start developing the problem where you have heart disease and all that other stuff, right? There's a lot into that, but again, the good thing is if I can cut you with a paper and you can heal, you're still a candidate to heal every single day, all the time. So you could be in one state, which is a fed state, or the other state, which is a healing state. And the reason why you're in a healing state is because when your body's not eating, it's actually healing. So that's why when you get sick, you lose your appetite because the body knows I need to heal. So that's the number one indicator. Like when they teach health, they should say like when your body heals, it's usually when you're not eating. That's why you don't have you don't fire off signals to your stomach to eat. You actually lose your brain tells your stomach like you're not hungry, we're not eating right now because we're sick. So like that same kind of understanding, like I said, when you begin to know your body, you know, but we do fall victim of, I'm the same way. I know I should be in bed by 10:30, but I'm the same thing, 11:30, 12:15. Then I got to get up at 5:30. And then I get back into but I've always lived like that. So I live with a higher blood pressure and I'm not saying it's good, but some people actually can live that way. It's like a smoker. Some smokers live to 100 and you're like, man, they smoke and drink their whole life. But it's just the way it is sometimes. That's not the rule, that's the exception. And because the body is resilient and some people can just last and the body's resilient.
But I would say when Kati and I were in Arizona a few years ago in April, we were totally in tune with the sun. We would be tired at 9 o'clock at night. The sun would go down and we'd be going to bed and we would wake up at 5 with the sun. And it was
But that's
fantastic.
but that's where and when I say the circadian rhythm, so look that up so you guys understand like when you're dealing with stress, so what you're doing is you're taking artificial light and you're telling your body to stay up when it shouldn't. So
Mm.
you automatically stress your body out because you have artificial lights. And that's where it's like there's so much to unpack. I mean, it literally would be like if I was sending my kid to school and they were doing health, it'd be a 2-year course of just little things like the circadian rhythm. Like,
Sure.
why is that a thing? Because your biggest organ is your skin. And so when the sun hits your skin, it actually talks to your cells and tells your cells, hey, wake up. And it tells your cells, hey, let me secrete melatonin because melatonin is natural. That's why when you do exogenous melatonin, meaning you take it, you have to start doing one, then two, then three, then you're doing like a whole bottle just to go to bed because it's a hormone. So you just stop producing melatonin when you take melatonin. So it becomes like you got to remember that a lot of the health hacks or the things are band aids. Hey, yeah, I'm gonna go take a flight and maybe I'll take some melatonin. Great, because you need to manipulate your sleep pattern, but you need to understand like the value of actually your receptors, which is your cell, and how that affects your circadian rhythm, which communication in the body. And that's really what I think when it comes to health and biohacking. You can't anti-age if you're always stressed. So if your circadian rhythm's off, you're stressed because you're going to bed 11, 12, 1 in the morning, and then your cycle's off. It's not right. And it's hard and what happens is you're in a hole. So now you're trying to eat better and exercise. You're not getting results. And you just don't realize you're just not going to bed at a good time. And then it's vice versa. Maybe you're going to bed at a good time, but you're not eating right. Or maybe you're exercising, but you're exercising too hard and you think like, but me exercising hard is going to keep the weight off, which it can, but it's going to stress your body out. And then you're going to actually have more cortisol. And guess what follows cortisol? Insulin. And guess what causes most of the problem? Insulin, because you get insulin toxicity levels go up. You create too much insulin. you could actually create more cortisol than you actually die from stress. It's crazy, but you're like, dang, it's a vicious cycle. But you can find balance by just, again, controlling your stressors, controlling your sleep pattern, and looking into things that maybe seem a little weird. But I'm telling you right now, a lot of us suffer from the blue screen, the blue light, basically what they found is that blue light is harmful, and incandescent lights actually help your circadian rhythm, and they keep you in that state of a more natural. That's why, like in the United States, Biden, because was a wonderful president, he actually outlawed incandescent lights. So now every home would have daylight when it's dark. So their kids will eat dinner at 8, 9 o'clock, and their skin's receptors or cell receptors in their skin will tell their skin, like, hey, it's still daylight. So what do you think it's going to do when they get in their room and they get on their phones? They're not going to want to go to sleep because their body's been told it's still sun out. There's still sun out. Our bodies aren't stupid. You have a daylight light hitting your skin, then that tells your melatonin, hey, wait, just it's still sun out, which is dangerous because you get in bed and you realize, man, I can't even go to sleep.
That's actually one of the biggest.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's crazy because for us in our house, how much do we love that we have dimmers everywhere and that we use candles and twinkle
Yeah,
lights, and
it's
the blue
great.
light thing is the absolute worst. And here I thought we were just being sexy, but it turns out we're being smart.
Really smart. No,
Well,
it's in
one of the big hacks is we're gonna get these blue light blocking glasses, and I was actually looking at some websites for changing out some of the bulbs in the
right.
house for, I think it's called full spectrum light bulbs,
Yeah,
because
no,
we gotta start hacking this stuff.
well, if you're biohacking, you have to learn how to activate your cells. Like I tell people, if the biggest organ is your skin, your actual most powerful organ is your liver, meaning they can cut 2/3 of your liver and it will grow back, which is crazy.
Hmm.
And your liver has over 500 responsibilities to actually heal the body. So the liver creates proteins like ketones and other proteins that actually help and aid the body. So the liver is one of the biggest, it's the biggest organ, or one of the biggest organs that is like amazing, and we need to protect that. And that's why high fructose corn syrup is the worst thing for a liver. But a liver can actually become less, I think they said 50 to 60% from a fatty liver within 2 to 3 weeks, just
Mm.
because it's a self-healing organ. So if you fasted for a week or 5 days and then just ate cleaner, you can literally, you don't even have to fast. You can just do soup and salads and like lean protein and even regular protein for that matter, but just eat cleaner for 2, 3 weeks and your body will be, you'll notice the difference.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest hacks right now is really cutting back on alcohol. Lately, it's been weird. I've been having big cravings for soda, which never used to happen. So I've had a few Coca-Colas here and there and cherry Cokes. I'm like, oh man, I love it.
No, I'm
But
the same. I do Coke Zero sometimes. I'll do Coke Zeros and zero. Well, zeros really just here and there. Well, my boss, I told him, I was like, it's your fault, man. I came to Texas. I hadn't had a soda for 3 years, and then you start drinking these zeros, and I try one. I'm like, that's actually pretty good.
but
But
when
again, it's
but when you first told us last year about fasting and things like that, I would say Kathy had a way harder time fasting. Wouldn't you say that here?
yes, yeah, and that's typical in women because they're usually, being that you have cycles and your body's is works actually harder than men on the inside. And that's what I told your husband. I said she should, because that just tells us you're actually more mineral deficient than you think. Because
I would
when you
100% agree that I'm mineral deficient. And lately, especially with all the gut stuff that I've had going on, I said it was last year, but it's this year too. I still haven't figured it out. But I feel like in some way something's not working. Like, I forget what it was called was. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but I'm not getting the minerals that I need, even though I'm putting really healthy stuff into my body. Somehow I'm not absorbing what I need.
well, that, like I said, I can tell your husband, the microgut biome is it's it is the most important thing I think on a human, because it really protects you. The micro gut biome is, you eat something, a bad burrito, or you eat something, it shoots right through you, which is supposed to, because that's the defense of your intestinal tract. Because you got to remember, there's a thin layer of skin, or you want to say in your intestinal tract, where your intestines actually absorb. So like when you learn about biohacking and nutrition, you learn that eating is actually absorption. So that's why they tell you like chew 20 to 80 times, because the more you chew, the more you pack the food with your enzymes from your actual pneumococcal bacteria in your mouth. It packs the food, and that acidicness will actually break the food down as it gets into your upper and lower intestines. So, like, you could be someone who maybe you don't like me. I eat way too fast. I take way less bites that I like. Literally, I'll take something down like two bite, like two chomps,
Like a
and it's like
goose.
down. Oh, and then what happens is you create bloat, and it sits in your gut, and it actually gets toxic. Because when food sits in your gut, it becomes more and more toxic. Like you wouldn't go and eat a burrito from that on the floor yesterday or sitting out because you'd see how rancid it is. But then it sits in our guts and we don't think nothing about it. We're just like, whatever. But our guts are very acidic and it does break down, but then it breaks down slowly. So now you look at you're not sleeping good, you're overtaxing your organs with alcohol. You're eating too frequently, so now you have high cholesterol because you just have thicker blood because the more you eat, the more it gets in your blood. That's why sugar, diabetes, they check your blood sugar levels because they read the blood. So it's not nothing new. We just don't do the math because they don't teach us that stuff. So the more you eat, the thicker your blood becomes because the more you have in your bloodstream and more your cholesterol. But when you're doing all those things,
Well, they
and
teach us
then
this that we got to eat cereal in the morning, and then you have a lunch, and then you have a dinner, and then
yeah, because you don't want to eat the snack in between lunch because when you get more hungry from the bacteria that's feeding off the cereal, it's going to want to feed off the midday snack, the breads and the sweet pies and the brownies, and then it's going to want to eat at lunch and then after lunch, and then the snack on the way home from school or work, and then the snack before you eat dinner, then at dinner, then the after dinner snack, right? So then all of a sudden they're billionaires and then we're broke and we're just actually spending a lot of money on snacks and sugar
I
because
did
it all
want to
comes
say
out the same.
quickly though that Kati made really amazing cookies, and I just ate them all. It was she sabotaged me so hard this week. I don't know what kind of wife this is, but she wants her
That's
husband to succeed, and
honestly,
then she does this to me.
for those that are out there that are really trying to biohack, that is the number one, the balance. Where do you balance being a young schoolgirl like your daughters, adults like us, younger adults, because we're not old.
I'm
We're in that age. We're in that age.
I'm pretty spry. I'm pretty spry.
We're honestly though, if you would fast more and eat cleaner, you would feel young. And that's what I learned. Like when I learned at 40, I felt better at 40 than I did at 21.
Hmm?
And that was because I was on a 16-8. I was eating I was eating either OMAD once a day, 1 meal a day, or I was eating in a window. So I would do what they call time restricted eating. And the problem with time restricted eating is sometimes you can come off those fasts or those small breaks not with a good plan because maybe you're busy, your spouse is busy, and you didn't meal prep for the week. So you just don't do yourself any favors. You just come home and eat whatever you can, or you eat too fast because that's the whole point of break fast. It wasn't because you wanted to, it wasn't a selling point. Oh, you can eat breakfast by just eating all this stuff and go to Starbucks and spend $20 for breakfast. You were actually breaking a fast, and a break fast could have happened at any point. So you would show up to somebody's house and you probably haven't eaten for a week because you traveled on horseback. And then when you woke up in the morning, they would give you a soup. They would give you some sort of clean wheat or some sort of something to fill your belly a little bit. And then they would give you a hearty breakfast or late. And then you'd be held over till dinner. And then it was normal. But nowadays, they want you to eat frequently because it's more money. And then the medical industry profits dearly off a poor diet.
What do you
Just
got
look
for me?
up. I was going to say, look up the Rockefeller and the food. And he actually created the American Cancer Society after he realized he was causing cancer.
Not a conspiracy theory.
It's just out there. It's in the ether. We can't unsee it.
Oh, we kept the receipts. Don't worry, Adrian. We got them all right here. But my biggest problem with breaking a fast, and that's so crazy. I never thought about that break fast. Is I love to eat when let's say I do a big 16 hours in a row with no food. That first meal is like a couple of eggs with some bacon, and it's just so good.
I would say eat 4 or 5 times a day, just eat the right food. And even though you're frequently eating, if you're not eating a lot of sugar, refined sugar, white starches, rice, grains. Because see, here's the problem, especially women. You guys like yogurt, and then instead of flipping the bottle around and saying that's 34 grams of sugar when I add up the carbohydrates and the sugar grams and the sugar alcohols. And then you pick the next one and it's got 15 to 20. And then you realize, well, when I eat that yogurt and that bread, I just consumed a Coke.
Oh, wow.
That's how the body looks at it. The body doesn't see it as like emulsified shapes like our
Mm.
eyes do. Our body just takes it in and starts breaking it down and sends it where it needs to go. So food in our world is more about appeal. In the body's world, it's about what nutrient do I get from there? Because then am I feeding because like we just bought a new collagen. I like bulletproof stuff. I like Dave Asprey. Look at Dave Asprey's big about anti-aging. Just look him up. Dave Asprey. He was
Okay.
one of the first ones. Dr. Berg. Anti-aging it's super simple, but we don't, like I said, if you're not taking a collagen powder or collagen, you're not eating eggs. How are you going to replenish your hair, skin, and nails? Like that's literally what collagen does, and we need it. And we're always depleted. So when you don't sleep enough, you deplete your body. When you have high cortisol, you deplete your body. So what happens is you start to run on like a net, like a negative net, like you're at a net zero on your electrolytes. Hey, I ate some kale today, but yeah, but you didn't sleep well. So for you not to sleep and your body to stress, you probably used extra electrolytes, which means now you're yawning through the day. You need more oxygen. So you're yawning and then you're tired because now you've tossed and turned because you're high sugar because the body doesn't turn off. So when you're high sugar, you're revved up in your sleep and may have to get up and urinate 10 times or because now you got sugar trying to exit the body wants to push the sugar out of the body. So it's going to cause it to come out through the urination and then you're going to lose water. Then you start having dehydration and your skin looks dry and then you're tired and you're wondering what's next going on. You got brain fog. It's just a mess. Welcome to 40, right? Oh my
Holy
gosh.
smokes. You've
No,
hit
it's
us
not that.
you've hit us with so much. So, has there been anything that you haven't mentioned that was a mind blower for you when you learned it and it helped you? What was your biggest hack that
I
helped
think
you
the biggest
immensely?
mind blower is that a lot of us have polyps and we have cancer in our body that the body cleans up actually.
Oh, wow.
And that they're actually discovering not only type 3 diabetes is getting more public now with dementia and Alzheimer's, all they realized was that the sugar is rotting the neurons in the brain because the brain requires more glucose, which you have gluconeogenesis. So you can look into gluconeogenesis. So you think there's actually certain parts of our body that needs sugar but the body creates it. So you want to balance. I'm not saying like no carbs ever, it's the devil. No, you just want to balance. You don't want to overdo it. You need what you need. If you have an excess of fat, you don't need a lot of carbs. If you're really skinny, you probably need carbohydrates. So there's a balance. So it's just because you can do 10 carbs a day, your wife, you may need 100, and then you'll feel great. You'll have a balance. You'll have just enough what you need as long as it's clean and it's not storing in your joints and wrecking your gut and all that stuff. Because again, sugar feeds bad bacteria. But that goes back to the whole cancer thing. Like when I realized like our body defends against cancer more frequently than we know. Like it
Hmm.
was like, man, because that's the fear thing. That was the Rockefeller thing. Like we can own the health industry with if we just scare them, they're gonna die from cancer, which is like Dr. Berg, who I follow, he goes, why would you want to do chemotherapy when radiation and chemicals cause to cancer and you fix it with radiation and chemicals? Like that doesn't make
Right.
that's like cleaning a mess with a mess. Like you don't do that.
No, it's
Um,
crazy. I
but
would
that's a
say
whole nother.
my biggest thing that you helped me with was like I didn't realize my gut was mostly bloating. And
Yeah.
when I started cutting the sugars and the bread and the dairy for that month, I was way trimmer. And I thought that was such a huge hack for me. And also, the inflammation in my shoulder, totally gone. So to me, those were a couple of the biggest takeaways. And it's pretty much the 1 year anniversary. I did it not this December, but the December before. That's how long we've known each other already. And I'm actually sad that I didn't do it again this December because I feel like I'm bloated again and it's time to really shed that and trim
Well,
it
that's what,
because,
and so what we do at our church every year, we do a Daniel fast, and it's like the 21 days of pretty much just vegetables. greens, and some people do poultry. So they won't, the main thing the Bible talks about is not doing like beef and maybe like some of the king's, I don't know if you would say like his delicacies or, but it was mainly just not eating meat for 21 days. It's like water and vegetables and poultry. But if
Don't
you
bet
look
you could
at
do
it
that
as,
easily.
yeah, well, it's just focusing on keeping the toxins out. It's like I said, there's nothing wrong with balance. It's because, to be honest, I don't know if it's the food, the addiction to food. I don't know if it's, I think there's always traumas that we don't talk about or deal with or we're not honest about, and we take it out in other ways. We could almost take it out on our kids by spoiling them. Like, I'm just going to give you everything. Because again, we lack balance. It's like my wife's like, you just living through your kids. So, yeah, I do. I had a really bad childhood, or not bad, but just foster homes. And thank God for the people that helped me in my life, like my pastor when I was a kid and all the way till now. And his son became like a brother from another mother. So like their family was very helpful along the journey and amazing people. But in there, I've had traumas with my own mom and my own dad and dealing with the system and things that happened in the system. And so when I see my kids doing well or living a life that I didn't live, it's wow, I'm like, man, it's so amazing. But then we do let our guard down. So, yeah, I just get my daughter calls me, Dad, go get me some chips, Dad. I'm like, you know what? I think you need a break, man. No, because she had eczema the other day and I told her, and she's been dealing with it and it got a little worse. And I told her, I said, it's just a sign that your nutrition is down. Like it's just your body's telling you something. So I help them. I'm not gonna make them. I'm just gonna give them the information so when they're adults or young adults, they can use it. They can, you know what, Dad said this. Let me look into that. Because ultimately we won't come to the understanding of revelation unless we have an encounter or we have a moment that we need to change. So like Kati, if you need to heal your gut, then focus on the gut because you'll learn the microgut biome, learn the different bacteria that your gut hosts, learn how parasites can be a big problem to the gut and how to eradicate your stomach from possible parasitic infections. Because a lot of times when you have like IBS diagnosis and then no one can help you, it's because it's probably just a parasite or little things of that nature that are just because they grow off sugar. You're probably most women eat a lot of oats and grains and yogurts, and maybe you need a break from the yogurts because it's fermented dairy and or whatever. I'm not saying you do that. I'm just saying like a lot of women just need it, or maybe they like their soda, and just take a few weeks to really see how you respond. Do the things that you need to heal your gut. Pink salt with apple cider vinegar and lemons, a little bit of clean premium baking soda and water, like just to satiate before you go to bed and see how it helps your gut. And just do little things. You don't have to shock your body and go crazy. Oh, I'm just not gonna. No, that's not. We don't want you to not eat for 2 months or something. But just use wisdom because your body needs electrolytes, it needs minerals, and your stomach needs healthy bacteria like kimchi and olives and pickles. All those fermented things actually carry good bacteria that fight the bad bacteria. But if it's a parasitic infection, then you need to look at things that you may need to stay away from and starve the bacteria and just see how your body responds. And that I think you'll be the biggest. That's what I learned through the young man with cancer, and even my sister-in-law who passed away in 2021 was, I remember having a conversation with her and she'd be like, I'm stage 4. And I was like, well, there's all these videos about stage 4 people getting better. And then she just would tell me like, well, the doctor said it doesn't really matter. And then she would do good eating and then her numbers would be down and she wouldn't do good and her numbers would be up. And I listen to things like that. I'm like, well, I don't know what my life's going to be like. So let me pay attention. So I would tell her, I actually bought her a book, How to Overcome Cancer and Nutrition. And she didn't really read it. And it was just because she was being told like, hey, this is your only option. And that's from the guys in the white coat making $20,000 a shot on her every week and $100,000 surgeries for this cancer that they miss. It's just a mess. That's medicine for you. When I know people who are trying to do it the right way, who were diagnosed with cancer for 10, 20 years. I had a friend who lost a lot of money, like over $1 million trying to get better. They finally said, all your money's gone. Your insurance is out. You only got a few weeks. And she's still here, 5 years later now? Because she went and did some holistic things that turned her life around and she's still here doing well. So there's always hope. You just have to have faith in God and just because here's the thing. When you read the Bible, God talks about this is what you need to eat. And he didn't say cows and pigs. He said the food that grows from the ground. Those things that have the seed in it, those are good. And then you learn about eating seasonal. Certain things don't grow all year long. So should you really eat them? You could be eating something that actually changes your DNA because it changed the food. So what happens, and I'm sorry, this is what y'all did this, okay? I didn't do this. You brought me on. But food, the DNA strands in food, like they matter. Like they realize like giving cows hormones and milk. That's why we want organic, because guess who gets these hormones? When they give these vaccines to cows and animals, guess who gets those vaccines and the things that are in those vaccines and the adjuvants that are in the vaccines? We, the people. And that's where our young adults or young kids, now they're putting a lot more glues in chickens and glues in meat. And like most people don't know, red meat is actually a chemical. And so there's a lot to it. And we can do our part. And that's the main thing.
That's a part two.
Yeah.
Well, Kati's going to ask you the question.
Oh, it's sad that we've come to that because I'm really enjoying this conversation. And the whole time, I'm like, as hard of a time as I'm having with my gut right now, I know I'm really good at knowing my body. I know myself really well. I listen to my intuition, and it's always don't go to the doctor. Don't go to the doctor. Because the last time I was in there, she had a mask on, first of all, which is a big turn off for me because I'm a healthy human and you're masking against me. And then she's, oh, you're a tall woman. You should drink water. Okay, well, first of all, I'm not tall. Second of all, my problems are not just because I'm not drinking enough water. She's so ridiculous. And then she's, oh, and by the way, you need your mammogram done, you need a pap done, and you need a full
Yes.
checkup. I'm like, whoa, this back off, lady.
No,
And
I
then I
mean,
realized like I'm on my own.
my aunt, I'll tell you, my aunt said she drinks lemon water, I want to say every day. And she hasn't been to the dentist or the doctors in, I think she said like 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And she's what, 75? She's the oldest. She outlived my mom, obviously, and then her sister just passed. So she's about, no, she's 76 maybe. And all she told me, she said, Mijo, all I do is drink lemon water and that's it. And I eat okay. I was like, wow. And she's
Mm.
doing well, 70 something plus years old. And like you said, she didn't do all the mammograms. I don't go to the doctors. I just drink lemon water and live my life peacefully and I don't eat really bad. I don't have little things here and there, but that's it. You know your body and your focus is what you need when you feel good, when you don't. And that's why I told you, like when you eat clean and you feel young, that's anti-aging. That's defying the odds. I'm not stiff. I'm not sore. I'm not tired. I feel great. I can move a house. If somebody's moving, I can help them, not be like, oh, okay, yeah, hire the movers. No, we can do it together. I'm more vested in my children. I'm more vested in taking walks. I'm like living. But to do that, you have to get past these areas of getting proper sleep, getting the proper light, getting the proper nutrition, taking care of your gut, staying hydrated, not with water, but with minerals. Hydration comes from minerals. Shocker.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, well, then I'm going to ask you the question that the last guest left for you, not knowing that it would be you. But if you could have changed your life path at any point, when would that be and where would you have gone?
Oh, that's a great question for
That
Adrian.
is.
I'm
That's a
fascinated by
loaded
that
potato
question.
right there. Um,
The crossroads, friend.
well, I've had that. I've had that. I would say, and I'm not trying to lie, that I wouldn't change anything. The only thing I would change is buying a house instead of when I got married. So when I got married in '05, I could have probably used that to buy a house and I didn't because I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. So that same house in '05 for 300 grand is now at 1.3 or $1 million. That was the only regret I think I've ever had. Only because I'm used to was used to apartment living, and now in Texas I live in a house, but I rent it. But it's a nice home, and we're blessed. We've been here a while now. I love it, but it was because I knew a lot of people who left California after COVID, and they just like buy 2 or 3 homes with the one house they had. It was like, dang it. So that was like the big, because other than that, I think our journey shapes us, and I've always been like that. And I think when I told you guys last time on Fern, like I don't regret anything because I believe in the Warren Buffett, like you should want to get better. Like I've learned so many. When I moved to Texas, I became a financial advisor and had my P10 professional tax identification number and just learned credit just because I knew I was lousy at credit and lousy at that kind of stuff. And it was an ick. And I knew what I knew, which was data cabling and wiring and everything else is, when I learned health, I learned that, you know what, if you just put your mind to it, it's amazing what you can learn and become. And even if it doesn't affect you right away, eventually you'll start making better decisions and become a better person every day. So that way, when I'm 40, I'm better, when I'm 45, and I'm better at 50. And no matter the mistakes you make, you just get better and you speak wisdom, because that's where wisdom comes from. It's like, I can only harvest things because of the young man who I tried to, I was praying for and helping, or my mom, and just realizing like I had no idea what she died from was easily fixable. Like literally, like we don't realize our sugar actually goes down when we don't eat. So maybe if we didn't eat as frequently, our sugar levels would level off. I mean, who would have thought? But they don't teach us that. They just teach us, take the insulin, you'll be fine.
That's not too bad of a what if. That's not too
I mean,
bad.
it's just how I roll, man. That's my wife she had leukemia when she was 14. And there's just a lot of things that when we look back, we just see the hand of God and the favor and the love of God. So I don't ever have a regret. I actually look back and think, man, that was amazing. God helped us. That was amazing. He was with us. That was amazing. That I remember being at Pebble Beach, Monterey, looking around. Like, I would have never thought when I was in a foster home in Oakland, California, that I would be here in Pebble Beach, where Clint Eastwood and all these celebrities do pro-ams at and play golf and hang out. That's, to me, that was like, it's God. Or I'd be at Stanford University in the Hoover Tower, or working in the president's office, or the provost's office, or Condoleezza Rice's office, or whoever, David Shaw, the coach at the time, and see John McEnroe over there. And that's not where I came from. Oakland, California, where it was ghetto. Ghetto. I was in
Oaktown.
foster homes, and you go from that on the 70s or 80s. I was born in 79, 70s and 80s, to like where I ended up, and even where I'm at now. It's just, I just look at God's love and favor and the things I've done in church. And like I said, from playing instruments and just singing and loving God and seeing my kids grow, it's my mind's blown. I'm actually just amazed. And that's why, like I said, like, it's a journey, and this part of the journey is the book to hopefully help people that help me and just open my eyes. And not just like, health is a lot. It's a system. It's your sleep cycle, your gut cycles, what you're putting in your gut. It's what you're putting in what your eyes are seeing, the lights that you're receiving, the levels of actual material. So minerals are like material, like potassium, magnesium, sodium deficiencies. Edema is like sodium deficiencies and potassium deficiencies, and how you need B complexes. Mental health is B1 and B3. You can look it up. So if you have a B1, B3, B6, you're going to be more depressed because you have a deficiency in B vitamins. And you can only take a B complex to actually retain all your B vitamins, which is a complex is 1, 3, 6, 8, and 12, 10 and 12. So all those B in one pill is better than just like a B6 shot or a B12 shot. I actually told my doctor that, or give my dad a B12 shot. And they're like, I'm going to give your dad a B12 shot. I said, why would you do that? What do you mean? Well, wouldn't you want to give them a complex so they can absorb the B12 with the 1, 3, 6, 8, 10, 12? Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll give them a complex.
Oh, wow. See, that's
Oh my
huge...
God. So you have to come to the doctor's appointments with everybody.
No, it's fun. It's fun. It's amazing. And I just thank God. Like I said, I'm in a journey right now where I'm trying to get back to where that's my focal point, is me looking at my longevity. Because again, anti-aging is actually longevity. So I want to see my grandkids and their grandkids. And to do that, I have to allow my cells to actually replenish healthily. And how do I do that? It's called autophagy. How do you get younger? Autophagy. You use cells that are old as building blocks to recycle and regenerate new cells that are healthy. And you have healthy mitochondria in your cells. So if you look up mitochondria and you look up what damaged mitochondria is, damaged mitochondria can become cancers. So like the mitochondria is, if your cell had a flame and a life force, that's it. And if the flame goes out, the cell dies. And if the cell dies, it could become a free radical, or it could become an amino acid and a building block for other proteins. That's why you have to fast.
Well, I would say that you are a huge inspiration to us, and I hope that we can be the same for you. And you are welcome to come to Canada anytime, and I'm going to show you things that you have never seen in the wild, and it will blow your mind.
I do want to go see for Yetis and maybe things moving in the skies out there. I think
I'll do what I can. We'll bring the dog. He'll keep us safe.
There you go. No,
but you have a job right now, and your job is to ask the next person a question that you would like them to answer.
Wow. Well, I would say if there's one thing that you cannot do now that you know you could do in a year with hard work, dedication, and a different mindset, what would that be? If there's one thing or a goal, rather if it's 700 credit score or a weight loss journey or an education or a degree, because you can get I think you can get a 2 year in a year nowadays online. So if there's one thing you could do in 1 year, a goal, a dream, play an instrument. Because really, that's where my journey started. When I learned to play the piano, I remember looking down like, man, all these black and white keys. How am I gonna remember? I can't even read, man. What are you doing? And then picking up a guitar, saying like strings and strum patterns and what is going on? Then you realize if you just stick with it, a little stick with itness, what could you accomplish in 1 year?
It's an amazing question. I can't wait to ask that.
All right. Well, I'm glad I didn't let you guys down.
We appreciate you spending time with us, and I honestly can't wait for the book to come out, and we definitely want to have you back again because you have so many things. I feel like we were completely overloaded, and there's a lot of things to unpack, but blood pressure, gut health, sugars, diet, just those things alone. Oh, and skin, biohacking with the eyes and the circadians.
Autophagy.
This is for everybody to go home and just do a little bit of homework, even just on one thing, and learn about that and let that cascade.
Learn about healthy mitochondria. I take that. That's the number one thing. Healthy mitochondria. Just look at that. Look at Thomas DeLauer, Dr. Berg. Healthy mitochondria. Learn what that is. I think that will cover a multitude of sins. Let's put it that way. Healthy mitochondria.
We'll try and get Dr. Berg on the show, but I'd rather have Adrian any day.
Hey, I'm certified by the Berg method, so it's close enough.
Awesome. And that's going to be a wrap, everybody. And we're going to see you on the next episode.